Hi, Oracle. Thanks for being on the space you're in. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Diana. I'm excited to be here with you today and have this conversation.
Amazing. Well,
Yeah.
so we met at a Jack and Jill event a couple weeks ago, and I just loved your energy and the little bit that you told me about yourself. I was like, oh my God, I would love to have you on my podcast. So, for the benefit of the people who don't know you, can you just say a little bit about who you are and who you serve and what has you excited in this season of life?
Yes, absolutely. So thank you so much for having me on. I love platforms like this where we just get to talk and be real and authentic about life. So for me, I am, coming up to 40, which, I don't mind sharing how old I am up front. Like I am aging out of my 30s and I'll be 40 here in a few months. And so I'm really excited about that. I am an entrepreneur. I've been a real estate broker for 13 years, and I'm also an integrative health and wellness coach. So I have these two lives where I work in the world of helping people find the home within, but also helping people create that environment of home outside of themselves as well. And I think that's just kind of organically become who I am and what I do just based on my own journey and in life. And I'm excited. I'm a mom. I have two older kids, I'd say, one 20 something and a teenager getting ready for high school. So between, my two businesses, my kids, and, taking care of myself,
Mhm.
I have a pretty dynamic and beautiful life.
Well, and I don't think I even remember to tell you. So the timing of creating this podcast, I thought about it for 2 years before kicking it off, but it
Yeah.
was largely inspired by um, turning 40 and having a lot of big feelings about turning 40 and being
Mhm.
ashamed because for so long I had had this identity, or so I thought, of being someone who didn't care about age and was too spiritual to be attached to
Mhm.
external markers. And I was like, why am I kind of freaking out about this? This is so like 180 degrees from the person that I say that I am. So I had like a mini almost identity crisis because I was like, am I not who I think I am? Am I not authentic? Am I not as spiritual or as evolved as I thought? Because why do I care so much about this number? And
Mhm.
so went on this journey of like, what is the story I'm telling myself about what it means to be 40? Because there's got to be some story if I'm having this big emotional response. Um, so anyway, but I want to hear about you. We can talk about the 40 thing later if you want to, but talk more about. I love that the theme that for you, just like the idea of home, both inside the body and outside the body, is both your businesses.
Yeah, and I think, just on the whole 40 thing, I feel like I kind of now, it almost feels spiritual that it matters,
Mm,
that I'm turning 40. It does feel for me like some awarenesses that I felt like I would have to work for based on having to work so hard to be aware
mhm,
is unlocked, right? And this kind of, get prepared type of energy. And so when I've been looking at myself coming into that, realizing that, okay, there's some things that are unlocking in me just naturally. I thought maybe it's my age, right? Like I've seen enough, I've done enough, I've mistaked enough, I've, people please enough to now be at a place where I'm just realizing that there's more to life
mhm,
and being controlled, And so it led me to this journey of safety and looking at safety and what safety really is as a human being, as a mom, as a woman. My adult daughter, her transitioning into being adult, and she's now really an adult, has led me to even being able to focus more on my safety.
mhm.
And so this kind of rite of passage that is 40, right? Which I was telling someone earlier, the 40 something talk is alive. We are the most beautiful women in our 40s. I mean, if you really look at, just what that even means, it's just such a beautiful place to be, I'm noticing.
Absolutely. Well, and
You
and
know?
I think that, 40 is um there's just so much, when you're young, like there's a lot that you can get away with in terms of bad mindsets, bad habits, but
Yes,
it's really compound. And by the time you're 40, like you're seeing the compound effect of
yes,
lifestyle, relationships,
yes,
self-worth.
yes.
So it can be a time where, I mean, I absolutely think I look better at 40 than I did at 30. Like,
Oh,
just period.
oh, for the close up, everybody, like this.
Mm, mm. Let
Mhm,
me move my
mhm.
eyebrows. Yeah.
So the this home within thing just became a really big deal for me in my late 30s.
Mhm.
It was about who am I? That question just really went from something cute,
Yeah.
to something that was like, no, for real. Like now I've been saying this long enough and claiming authenticity, but am I? And so that created me to go on this personal journey that showed me how unsafe I
Mhm.
felt my internal environment was based on how I'm relating from really I discovered I feel like I was relating outside in more
Mhm.
than inside out, right? Like I was using how people responded to me, reacted to me, praised me, or criticized me to understand myself,
Yeah.
right?
I um I want to know if you agree with this or not. I was having a conversation last night, and I think when you are a healer, or you're in a personal development space, there's
Mhm.
certain words that almost become terms of art. And so we use them and have a very specific meaning, but
Mhm.
people who are newer to healing work maybe don't understand what, like, the full scope of what we
Yeah.
mean when we use a word like safe or
Yes.
safety. And
Yes.
so last night I was having a conversation with two friends. One was having an issue with some family members, and I said, "Oh, well, you know, based on what you're saying, like the real issue is they don't feel like what you're wanting to do is safe. So if you can frame, this thing that you're proposing in a way that makes them feel safe, you'll probably get less pushback." And they were like, "What do you mean by safety?" I was like, "Oh, okay. I'm using safety as in a very specific way. As like in this context, what I mean is you've got to frame it through the lens of something that they've seen work in the past. Because a lot of times being able to relate things to things that have worked in the past makes people feel like it'll work in the future. So
Yeah,
when you talk about safety and feeling safe, what do you mean? Because I feel like that word has so much nuance.
absolutely. So, and as a mindset coach, which is what I focus on in my integrative wellness coaching practice, I can be a little deep, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
pardon me
Let's
for
go.
right? Um, for me, in the context of what I just used, it's a nervous system thing.
Yes.
It's
Mhm.
a regulation thing from being able to feel like your reality is your reality. So, like, I feel there's a lot of people that live in a gaslit reality
Yeah.
and a fantasy reality. And those realities don't match the energy or what's happening. And so there's a lack of safety in the nervous system
Yeah.
just because the mind is a bit separated from the truth,
Mhm.
right? And
And
so
for the
that,
benefit of people who don't fully, they're not tracked. So everyone has what's the autonomic nervous system. It's got two parts, sympathetic and parasympathetic. The sympathetic is kind of more colloquially referred to as the fight or flight response.
yep.
It's the more complete is fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Those are the four things that you do. And the main reason is your prefrontal cortex gets basically shut down. It's not getting optimal blood flow. And so the prefrontal is what's responsible for expansive thought, creative thought, solutions. So you become blinded to solutions and hyper aware of problems and only capable of reactive action and seeing the other as the enemy. And that sympathetic nervous system is activated by a perception of danger somewhere in the body. So for those of us, or for those who are listening, and when we say nervous system, I feel like we're like tracking, but someone's listening and is like, "What do you mean nervous perspective?" It's like when your body senses something that makes it feel unfamiliar, unsafe, it can activate this response that makes it harder for then you to see a solution. And one example I give often is if you've ever had a situation where someone comes to you with a solution to a problem and you're like, that would never work. And then you sleep on it, take a shower, work out, think about it again, and you're like, oh, that's perfect. It's not that they were wrong, it's that you were blind to the solution because your nervous system, the sympathetic, was activated and blinding you to the solution. So, anyway, I want to just insert that not for us because I know that we know, but people are listening and they're like, what do they mean by nervous system perspective? It's, you
It's
know,
almost like it shrinks your options,
mm-hmm,
right? In a world of all things being possible, when you're dysregulated, your
yeah,
options become survival.
mm-hmm,
And if you're in fawn or freeze or some of those other spaces that you just spoke about, then your options may be nothing.
right.
I can't move, I can't do, I can't decide. And now we
Helpless.
start to
Yeah.
take on these identities of, I am indecisive,
Mm-hmm,
am depressed, because we are so triggered in the other parts of our brains that are still working to label it,
mm-hmm,
right? I can say what this is and not experience it. Right. And so safety for me in a nervous system perspective and a regulated perspective is being willing to experience
mm-hmm,
whatever is happening. Because even when there is the perceived danger or whatever on a healing journey, the goal isn't to necessarily ignore the nervous system because you want it to work,
right.
right? We don't
Keep
want
you
to be
safe.
like, oh, I no longer will ever freeze or fawn in my life. No. Times when I got one or two options and I need my body to tell me, ma'am, you got one or two options. You going in the door or you going out the back. Right. So
Right.
that needs to stay available to me. But if there is something that still feels like attack based on a past or, non-safe situation, I, as a person in my mastery, have learned that I still want to be able to feel that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I don't want to ignore myself. I want to have a relationship with my emotions that allows me to process in real time
Mm-hmm.
instead of storing, stacking, and then having to explode or really claim depression at a point where that's my true reality.
Yeah.
So safety is first that piece of owning my reality, right? Like, am I even safe to say this is anger? Am I safe to say I'm disappointed, right? Like that is safety. It's not over extreme positivity. It's not idealism. It's not perfection. It's contentment,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you go home for the home without, when I focus in my business on people's lifestyle, right? Like, okay, what's your budget? But within that budget, what's your growth plan? And within that growth plan, what's the lifestyle that you're looking to create? Because the house that you purchase now, if it's safe purchase, means that it's connected to the next thing in your life. That
Mm-hmm.
at least we have imaginations. Let's not shut down our fantasies, but let's realistically allow our today, to be pointing there, right? And that creates a longevity of experiences that then allow us to ground safety into what I call knowing, going from, hoping to believing to having faith in something to knowing it is a process.
Right.
And so if you have a safe inner world and a safe outer world, then I feel that process scales very quickly. And so that's been my own space. Like that's what I'm cultivating for me in my world. That's what I've learned to look to offer to the people that I love in hopes that community is growing in that, and then that becomes an exponential experience um, of wellness, right, and of wealth. So right now in my life, it is business, right? It is authenticity. It is owning my voice, owning my gifts, and sharing them, stumbling blocks or whatever.
Or
Embracing them.
whatever. Heavy
You
on
know what I
that whatever.
mean?
Hmm.
And kind of been trying to embracing that. Because 39 years of life has taught me they're there. They're there. Uh, but am I gonna cry and expect somebody to come and get me and help me and listen to me every time I walk into a block? Like, if I really know what I'm made of, I probably can, notice, get up and keep going. And so, the space in my life right now is looking to really be mature in these 40s, to live it maturely and light on others, like just making everyone's life very light to be around me, not because I'm pleasing you and doing what you want, but because I'm clearly doing what I want.
Yeah.
And that means not that I don't need anything, but when I do, I'll let you know because I feel safe enough um, to trust, which man, trusting the street you drive down when you come home, trusting your own decisions, trusting that you've picked good friends, trusting that you've picked the right partner, what a level of safety could that be for someone?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the word that's coming up while you're speaking is vulnerability. Like I have, at different points in my life, felt like my value was tied to how hyper independent I could be.
Mhm.
Um, Whereas now I tie a lot more value to just how honest I can be about my capacity. Whether it's I've got it or I don't got it, sure, let me know what's going on. I don't have the bandwidth to be your sounding board today. Like just being able to be authentic about um I'm just no longer available to bleed out and die for everyone in my world. I'm no longer available for lighting myself on fire to keep people warm. But I did that for a very long time because it's a it's a way, especially as a Black woman, to get um external validation. Like, oh, she's so selfless. Oh, you can call her in the middle of the night. She'll come over and like do whatever. Like, you can, uh, you know.
Yep. Yep. I mean, I had to have the real discussion with myself with that too, because there was someone in me who had decided what people like about me.
Mm,
And so it was like, oh, well, you just need to do more of that. They like these things, they don't like these things. So don't do any of that and do all of this. And, you know, no, that's just not true, right? Like these may not even be the things that people like about me. These may not be the things that people don't like about me. Like people's response to me may happen in their dysregulation. Like their
mhm.
possibilities for responding to me may have shrunk
Yeah.
based on me being me, So how am I to know really what you think? And so it has to begin to not matter. Like
Yeah.
it really
Because
has to
people
begin to,
liking you is shaped by their intentions for you,
yes,
like, and not everyone means well.
yes,
And 2025 has been the first time where I've had like repeated people coming to me about, instead of me wanting to work with them, like wanting me to work with their children. And this past week, there was a conversation with someone who, well, a girl in high school. And it was just, she was struggling with feeling lonely and feeling like she doesn't fit in. And I was like, I know that right now this seems like a high school thing, but you're learning a life lesson. Like, and the life lesson is you've got to figure out how to be your own best friend, especially as a woman, because otherwise you'll spend your life contorting yourself
yes.
to be what you think it is that people want of you. And kind of the gag is it's usually people that are contorting themselves to be something, that are going to want you to like contort yourself as well. It's just, you might as well just be real and just not be for everybody.
Absolutely. It's such a domino effect. And then we all end up locked into each other in these controlling
Mhm.
mechanisms, codependencies that we don't even really all want. Like it's all a hoax. And so it's kind of like, oh, okay, like I'm gonna jump out of the matrix now, like I realize that it's a thing to be in that.
Mhm.
And I'm no longer a victim either because initially I had my arms folded. Who put me in there? Like, look what you did to me, mama. Like you put me
Oh.
in this matrix, like you're the reason and ex-boyfriend and you're the reason. And so it's like even that's a part of the matrix though. That's a part of that standard of status quo of being controlled and codependent in all these different ways and calling it love.
Mhm.
And so it's like now, and it was a very energetic journey for me. It was a very nervous journey for me to now be in this place where I understand the power of living from within out.
Mhm.
I've learned that power of authenticity, of just saying it, of vulnerability, of being able to let other people manifest, is what I call it, right? Like, show me yourself. Because as soon as what I learned about authenticity, soon as I'm committed to it, everybody show me who they really are.
Mhm.
Everybody,
Because
because
vibration, right?
you
Like if you're
can't
vibrating
hide.
the frequency of truth, like it's like light dispels darkness. Like you turn on the light and like the things that could stay hidden in the dark are now illuminated. And sometimes it's just your eyes are opened. Like nothing has changed. It's just like you can see because when you increase, like I said, that frequency of truth, that energy of truth, it's so powerful. The Bible talks about, the truth being a sword. And
Mhm.
I make it's like if you know, you know, like it really
Look,
does.
it cuts through all of the minutiae
Hmm.
and you
Noise.
see what it is.
Hmm.
And you're absolutely right. Like those that seek, knock, will find out,
Hmm.
right? And so it's not really about anyone else knocking. And so I had to learn I am actually not people pleasing anyone else but me because I'm holding this.
Hmm.
Like in the end, I'm getting to validate that I'm a good person based on what I've learned about myself from the outside, and that, so it's my own racket that I'm running. I'm because here's the thing about frequency and emotion. We only ever experience ourselves, our
Hmm.
thoughts, all. Yes, we have telepathic ways and any of that, but our processing and like what we are hoping, believing, faithing in, and knowing, it comes from us. It's like really an experience of self.
Yeah.
That was the key to me realizing, okay, well, and I have to make this shift. I have to make this shift because if really I'm self-suffering, if really this is really self-hatred, not really hate out there, if anger is really self-hatred and not about the other person, if everything I throw out there comes back, like if those things are true, right? Then this authenticity isn't necessarily about y'all or the outside. I mean, like life, I mean, like I just had to just accept that truth and it just cut open like making anyone else a reason for me to grow,
Hmm.
for making anyone else a reason for me not to grow, you know? And it really made me want to share my authentic self with the intention of inspiring others.
Yeah.
Right? Like my vulnerability isn't out here as a doormat. No, this is worthiness. This is honor, self-honor. This is truth that you're experiencing when I'm being authentic. You're not experiencing my next try at being accepted
Hmm.
because there's a whole false authenticity out there that's a simple try at being accepted. Like it's still not real because there's still that non-contented question is, do they like it?
Yeah. And I think there's also on the other extreme, there's like disempowered trauma dumping. that
Yeah.
people are, I'm being vulnerable, I'm being authentic. I'm like, no, like you're not
Oh,
owning your healing
yep.
and you're wanting to verbally process and not actually do any work.
Right.
Like that's not it either.
You're feeling the dysregulation,
Hmm.
right? You're feeling it. So one of the main things I'm up to these days that I love is my relaxation sessions. And what we do in that is really work through non-sleep deep rest
Hmm.
and sound healing and breath work to get to those spaces inside the body where you can own that the experience you're having is of you.
Hmm.
And so when you do that, you can tell the difference between am I trauma dumping, right? Or have I come to that crossroads in myself where there's a real honesty, a real confession, a real conviction, a real, seeing of the other possibility, a real feeling of the feeling.
Hmm. Yeah. And
Um,
I
yeah.
don't know if you've read Calling in the One by Catherine Woodward Thomas, but
Mhm.
she talks about this idea of being the source of your own patterns.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, especially for people who've experienced multiple traumas,
Mhm.
they'll be like, oh, life keeps happening to me, and never taking a step back, like, and seeing how,
Yeah.
like, there's a common denominator, even if it's as simple as not listening to your intuition when it said, don't go there, don't
Mhm.
allow yourself to be in the room with this person,
Mhm.
don't say yes to that. Like, I can think about a situation with someone who, um, fortunately, I was never assaulted by them, but I could see how the trajectory was leading towards that. And there were so many times where alarm bells would be going off internally when I was around them. But because it was someone who I knew through church, and because of, like, nothing was wrong on the surface, right? But um, in my spirit, I could just sense that something was very wrong. And it was someone that I was, for all intents and purposes, supposed to see as a leader. And I had every right to be able to trust them. But, later on, it came out that they were a pornography addict and that they had been taking inappropriate pictures of me. Which it's like the way, again, I'm talking about that frequency of truth and things being exposed. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, like I've spent multiple years forcing myself to be in proximity to this person when I could have avoided it if I just listened to what was happening internally. And the internal dialogue I would have is, oh, these uncomfortable feelings, they must be my daddy issues. They must be me projecting my own, because he's got a daughter and they're so close. And, so just beat myself up when really it was my inner guidance trying to protect me. Um,
Mhm.
so, right.
Trust is the ultimate safety. Like it's the space that I think is created um for us to live out all of life, because I think trust isn't necessary when everything is going right.
Right.
Like wellness isn't necessary when everything is going right. I mean, like there's these big ideas aren't like people pleasing isn't a discussion when everybody agrees, So there's these things are really a topic when there's discord, So that's what mastery I feel for me in these new moments are really going to be about. It's like being able to be in a reality of it without being it,
Hmm.
right? Like being able to know that if I can hold on to my peace in a, heated conversation, right? Then that will make sure I don't lose my intuition.
Hmm.
When something else is telling me, hey, here's how to bypass those kinds of conversations, right? Like here's how to actually learn from your experiences, feel it in your body so that when you have the next experience, that tuning is there and you have trust that you can trust yourself,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like this all these different layers. God is so beautiful to make it so simple but so complex, and us being able to kind of expand and see all the different layers, but when it collapses, it's just simple.
Well, and one other thing I was thinking while you're talking is I've had sessions with clients in the past where, to me, the issue, it seems, they're so numb, they're so used to numbing and ignoring their body and either escaping the body because of trauma in the past, or they have substance abuse
Mhm.
issues that, so they're just used to disassociating. And so they tend to not even recognize feelings of anger until they're approaching the point of no return because they're so numb. And so they fear anger, but it's because they're so used to ignoring or not even noticing the alarm signals in the body as the anger levels are approaching, that they don't even recognize it until they're like so angry that it's like they're almost scared of what they're capable. So they think that anger is the problem when really it's numbness and not being in the body and trusting the body and noticing when it's speaking to you.
Mhm. I have I've had a experience in my life with psychedelics.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with psychedelics for about 8 years, due to my major trauma, repetitive trauma throughout my childhood, adulthood, daily life. I'm an entrepreneur. It's traumatic out here, right?
Period.
Oh.
Say it again for the people in the back.
So I spent about 8 years. It came to me, psychedelics did approach me and just showed up in my life and then exited my life at the right time. But in that, I remember one ayahuasca experience that I had. It was probably my third.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've never heard of ayahuasca, it is a Peruvian vine that is cooked with Peruvian leaves to create a tincture or tonic that you drink that creates medicinal and psychotropic responses, right? So in the spiritual world, you consider it more of a psychedelic, like hallucinogen experience. But in or medical world or Western world, they call it a hallucinogen experience. But in the world of spirituality, it's very deep, ancient healing medicine. And when that intention is set upon it, you really can have extraordinary experiences of deep healings and
Yeah.
deliverances.
And
And
it's
so I
not something that like you do like on your, like it's under the supervision of a shaman and so like yeah.
There's protocol, there's proper sacred responsibility to it if you're doing it right. And so my experience, there was a particular experience, but my third experience with ayahuasca, and I sat with ayahuasca a total of 12 times.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was sitting there, and it's a grandmother spirit if you embrace the spiritual side of it. And she came and she stood in front of me and she said to me, she showed me my body and it was empty,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now I had come down with ringing of the ears maybe 2 years prior to that, and that was part of what sent me on this journey. I moved to California from Texas, just up and left, and moved to
And
California.
out of curiosity, the ringing of the ears, I'm like, do you know, or did it ever come up about like blockages in your throat chakra causing that?
It ended up being a very, 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 very strong stubbornness,
Mm-hmm.
not listening to myself,
Mm-hmm.
not listening to my gut, like
Mm-hmm.
very strong self-betrayal to the point that I put myself in a frequency that was alerting me how wrong, I was just moving wrong with myself completely.
Okay.
Right. And so, yeah, no, I had to break out of that frequency. They say it's an incurable thing, and that can be true if you're not willing to surrender.
Well,
Surrender healed my ears.
yeah.
I say
The
that way.
idea of incurable is a perfect example of limited human understanding because one of the laws of the natural dimension we're in is cause and effect.
Yeah.
So there's for all effects, there is a cause. Sometimes there's unknown causes, but there's not no cause for
Yeah.
anything. Everything has a cause. And so, um, but through the lens of limited human understanding, that's why the list of known causes is finite, because sometimes the cause is spiritual, and that's not something that currently the medical community fully embraces.
Absolutely. I mean, because they don't understand beliefs, and believe again that spectrum
Platforms.
of hope
Yeah.
to knowing beliefs is very powerful. It
Hmm.
really controls us. And when you believe something about yourself enough to feel into that on a chronic basis, then you become what you believe. As a man thinketh, therefore he is.
Hmm.
So I was very rooted in thinking I knew everything. And therefore, my ears would not stop ringing until I let go and realize I don't really know nothing. And that's what
Hmm.
keeps me safe,
Hmm.
right? Keeps me flexible and keeps me open to the all possibilities that are another law of this universe. But when Mother Ayahuasca came up to me, she showed me my body and it was completely empty except for my head. My head was full of all of this electricity.
Mm.
And so she showed me how, because of the things that I experienced, I had abandoned my body. I had abandoned my heart space and I was living completely in my head.
Oh.
All of my energy was in my head, and she showed it to me. And she's like, "This is you. Like, this is your experience. This is why you feel this way. This is everything. Like, you're numb." To
Hmm.
your point about numbness, the numbness came from my spirit, my soul being pushed up, into living in my chest area up through my head. And so it was my shortness of breath. I had gotten a habit of holding my breath. Women, if you hold your breath, please stop holding your breath.
Yeah. Good
If
to
you
flow.
if you reverse breathe, if when you breathe in, your stomach, collapses instead of expands, fix that. Work on your breath and return it the other way, because that is a lot of why we have panic attacks and all these other things. It's the breathing. It's getting emotionally regulated, getting in fight, flight, fawn, and breathing bad. And then the body just then automatically breathes bad and puts you
Hmm.
in fight or flight for no reason, just
Yeah.
because of the breathing. But she showed me my body, showed me why I was numb, and then she asked me, "Do you want to get back in it?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I do." Right. And so she said, "Okay, boom." And I began to descend back into my body.
Mm.
And it hurt because I had to relive all the experiences in almost felt like real time that it caused me to abandon my body,
Yeah.
to leave the areas, to leave my meridian system, to leave my sacral system, to abandon everything and just kind of try to control it with my thoughts. Because as a man thinketh, we are very smart. So we're not, we're surviving. Me going into my head wasn't to hurt me. I was trying to save myself.
Yeah.
Right. So once I got back in my body through that experience, I remember the first day I had a real feeling, because and in that instant that I actually felt how I really felt in that moment, I knew everything else was a rehearsal and like responses.
Yeah.
I knew that every time I was angry, I had no control. Every time I was sad, I had no control. I had literally no control because I had no access to my vehicle.
Hmm.
Once I got it back, right, then I realized, oh, you hold this in your arm. You hold betrayal in your up here.
Hmm.
You hold um, fear of money down here. Like I could feel now
Yeah.
the beauty of what God created when He created my body, because He put storage houses to process life. And if I take care of my body and my mind and my spirit, I'll process this life beautifully, and not through, what I learned, growing up. So, I'm excited to be alive. I'm excited to be a coach. I'm excited to coach people on building their wealth, on, building their relationship with identity.
Hmm.
Um, I support people just to cry, just to breathe, just to be. Um, But more than anything, I'm grateful to be, living it myself so that everything I'm sharing, I validated within
Right.
me and have the right or the permission to trust myself with other people's experience of God.
Yeah. I love that the idea of experiencing God. Um, I grew up evangelical Christian, stopped going to church for a while, have in the last couple of years gone back. But one thing that's really important to me is helping kind of nudge people in the direction of universal truth. And it's like you can refer to God in lots of different ways, like the universe, quantum field, Allah, but there is a truth about that spirit of God, and when you feel it, you're like, it almost feels irreverent to label it because it's so expansive and powerful and transformative that I said it for the first time in the last week, and I'm still kind of chewing on this, and maybe I'll come up with something more substantial later on. But I just feel like God, that label is like too small for what it is that at least I'm thinking of. Like even quantum field feels a little bit too small, but like just that all that is all knowing, all powerful source, you know.
To your point, I think people stop at God.
Mm-hmm.
They stop at what that outside in communication with that word is. They stop at that frequency. They stop at that vibration instead of taking that as oh, I lost an AirPod. Instead of taking that as a pointing to
Yeah.
that, go meet God,
Go be in
right?
it.
It,
Yeah.
like go be in God instead of just saying, okay, so you said God is this, God does that, God that, point God. Okay, cool. There's God, right? Or not. And to be so selfish to think that you would know without looking is crazy, you
It's
know?
wild.
So I feel that, yeah, I grew up a certain way. I left it completely. And then it came again to me.
Hmm.
And so there's a relationship,
Yes.
right? That I think is what life is. I think life is the relationship with God. And for me, the key has become in this period of my life, breath, because it's the only thing that I've had since I got here. First gift he ever gave me was an in breath.
Hmm.
And then the first thing that I ever gave back was an out breath. And we've been doing that ever since.
The whole time.
My
In our
my
sleep.
breath, every moment, my breath has been with me on every step, whether running, walking, or sleeping, whether I was holding it or letting it. I mean, like it's been there. So there's nothing closer to God in my experience of myself than my breath.
Hmm.
And man, when I give it my thoughts, my energy, my workouts, it changes even a workout.
Hmm.
Breathing, right? Breathing with a workout completely changes the workout.
Absolutely.
Dancing, pick a thing. Chopping wood, pick a thing. You
Because you
breathe with
feel so
that
much
thing.
more alive when you give intention to your breath.
Oh God, I mean, I just love it. So, yeah, like I feel like I feel like the nervous system really stops us from that secret place
Mhm.
within ourselves where God is unnamed,
Right.
where it absolutely doesn't make any sense, but I love being here. I just love it there. I just love it there. And then to be able to then start to believe that there is here now, that there isn't necessarily just a quiet place, but that stillness, that quiet is what's making noise. The quiet is what's making noise inside of me
Mhm.
that has me here. And so as I experience that space enough, I'm learning that we can start bringing that heaven to earth. We can start actually living it universally. We can start seeing God in the tree and it not need to be in the form of a man or anything actually. Like we see it in the tree because the tree is, and that's how we see it because that's how we see ourselves.
Mhm.
But until we see this in a way that's healthy from the inside out, like until because the one from the outside in is a lie. Just FYI, any of that outside in stuff, it's a reflection. It's already dead. It's a lie. It's already happened. It's already.
Illusion. Yeah.
So it's that inside out space that man is I really hope for people. I really hope people discover it. I thank you for letting me talk about it because I hope someone's inspired by us in this conversation that we've had about it because shoot, why not know yourself through whatever God is?
Like authentically. Yeah. And I'm looking at the time. I'm like, oh, we talked way longer than I thought we would, but I loved this conversation. I love that it went, you know, different
All the,
directions and,
all the way.
maybe not what either one of us was planning. But for the benefit of the people who are listening, don't know you, where can they find you and how can they work with you if they want to?
Absolutely. So, my real estate brokerage is my older baby, my teenage baby, and we are doing big things, helping people buy, sell, and invest in real estate, from residential to commercial spaces, multifamily, small business owners, and new and first-time home buyers, and custom folks. So we do it all.
Mm.
So you can find me I'll at brokeredbycoco.com or on Instagram at Coco at Compass. That's my big baby. And then my new baby is my coaching space, that practice. I do classes on Wednesday nights in Dallas,
Mhm.
Texas, where we just relax. Again, breath work, mindfulness, body relaxation techniques.
Where are your classes?
They're at Sanctum Med Wellness over off
Sanctum. That's
yeah,
Shepherd.
Dr. Jessica Shepherd is our fearless leader on just longevity and living a life that you love of wellness and health, versus with the Eastern and the Western philosophies in place. So we do that at Sanctum on Wednesday nights. Oraclesmith.com is my personal website where you can hire me for coaching. I do these sessions in corporate space as well, in nonprofit spaces. So I'm just out here trying to serve the inside of you and the outside of you, from a wellness perspective or wealth perspective. And those are the places to find me.
I love it. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for being here and just sharing your energy, your truth, your journey on the space you're in.
Thank you so much, Diana. You have a blessed day, okay?
You
I'll see
too.
you soon.